My name is Eleanor Trott. I use she, her, hers pronouns, and I'm the Field Program Assistant with Appalachian Conservation Corps. An aspect of my identity that's important to me is that I love to read, and I always bring a couple books out with me in the field. Today, I'm going to talk to you about what's in my front country pack. Front country camping means that you're camping in a designated campground or right near your vehicle. So you don't have to worry about weight of your gear, and you can even pack all of your stuff in a duffel bag or a big trash bag if you don't have a pack. Things that you still do want to think about are keeping all your stuff dry, what's gonna make you the most comfortable, and how to pack all of your things efficiently. So let's start with the pack. My pack is an old military pack, and so it's basically one big pocket, and it's got some smaller pockets on the front. The first thing that I do is I line the whole thing with a big, heavy contractor-grade trash bag, because this pack itself isn't waterproof and I don't have a cover for it. So this helps to keep all of my stuff dry. The first thing that I put in is going to be my sleeping bag. And I have my sleeping bag in a compression sack. And what that does is it allows me to squish it down to a lot smaller than I would be able to otherwise. Because if I didn't do this, my sleeping bag would take up about half my pack. Now, you don't have to get a compression sack, even if your sleeping bag is really big, because for front country, you can have extra stuff outside of your main bag. So you can just pack your sleeping bag separately, but you probably want to put it in a trash bag or something if you are packing it separately, just to keep it dry, because all of your personal gear is going to be riding in an open trailer often, or in the back of a truck. Even when your stuff is wrapped up in tarps, you definitely want to think about how to keep it dry in case some water does get in. So, I put my sleeping bag in the bottom. The next thing that I'm going to pack is my clothes. I keep all of my clothes in a waterproof dry bag that rolls up at the top to keep it waterproof, like that. But you don't have to do that. I just do that because I have it. A cheaper way to do this is to put your clothes in another trash bag or some big 2-gallon Ziplocs. And this is just another barrier against water getting into these things that you really want to be dry. So I start by packing some PJs. These are also my camp clothes that I change into pretty much as soon as we get back from work every day. Unless it's really rainy and I want to keep my sleeping clothes dry, and then I just leave them in my tent until it's time to go to bed. So a couple of t-shirts and some pajama bottoms. For the spring and fall, I have a set of wool long underwear, and this is a real lifesaver in the cold. I can layer it under my sleeping clothes as well as under my work clothes if it gets really cold. So a top and a bottom. And then I have one pair of work pants that I keep in here, and another pair of work pants that I'm gonna wear on the first day of Hitch. So I have at the bottom of this bag, I promise, a whole bunch of underwear. And that's ideally synthetic underwear. Cotton isn't great for this purpose, but you don't need the fancy, expensive camping underwear. You can just get any kind of synthetic underwear. Often Walmart and Target have it for pretty cheap. And then you're gonna want a lot of dry socks. I usually take 1 pair of socks for every 2 days that I'm going to be out in the field, plus an extra super fuzzy pair that's my sleeping socks. And those just live in my sleeping bag, and I only put them on when I turn in for the night, so they stay perfectly dry and warm. And you don't want your socks to be cotton either. Wool or synthetic are good choices. So I'm gonna get some of the air out of this and squish some stuff down, and then you'll get 2 uniform shirts. So those are an important thing to wash when you're home in between hitches, but you'll want to wear one of them on your first day and pack the other. And then last things in here, I have a pack towel, which is just a quick drying, smallish towel. You can bring a regular towel if there's going to be running water or if you want to bathe yourself on front country hitches, but like I say, cotton isn't ideal. A lot of that is because it doesn't dry out very quickly. So you may only get 1 use out of your towel if you bring a normal one. And then I have a dirty clothes bag. So this is just a bag that I bought a set of sheets in. So it can really be anything. I just like to have something to separate my dirty clothes when I'm done with them. So that's all of the clothes that are going to go in my pack. So I squish this down and get the air out of it, and then I'm going to roll up the top to help it be waterproof. And that'll go in the bottom of my pack with my sleeping bag. When I'm packing for a hitch, I also want to set aside the stuff that I'm going to wear and use the first day of hitch. So like I said, a pair of work pants, one of my work shirts, my boots, some socks, my belt, my Leatherman, a small knife and lighter, just the stuff that's going to go in my pockets, my wallet and phone, a car charger for my phone, because especially on front country hitches, the car or the crew vehicle is probably going to be the best place to charge your phone if there's a place at all. And then once you get issued your personal protective equipment, you may end up bringing your safety glasses and your gloves home with you after each hitch. So you want to make sure to put those in the pile to bring them back. I like to have my gloves on a clip and my safety glasses on a lanyard. So you might want to invest in a little lanyard and an extra carabiner to keep your PPE around and keep you from losing it, if that's something you're worried about. So I've packed my bottom layer in my pack, my clothes, and my sleeping bag. And then I have my sleeping pad. I prefer one of the inflatable kind because I'm an old lady and I like to be really comfy. But the foam kind are awesome too, and they're a little bulkier, so you probably will end up packing those underneath your pack or on top of it, just tying it to the outside somewhere. But mine rolls up pretty small, so I pack it inside. I camp under a camping tarp rather than a tent, so that's my next thing that goes in. And then that also requires that I have some tent stakes and some rope. So those I keep in this front pocket right here. If you do have a regular tent, don't forget to pack your tent poles. Some people pack all the bits of their tent separately, and it's easy to forget the poles. A tent is another thing that you can pack just completely separately from your big bag of stuff for front country. Especially if it's already in a nice compact bag of its own, that's totally fine to just throw it in separately. One thing to mention is that if I'm packing up wet, like if it's raining or the dew hasn't had time to evaporate in the morning before we pack up, I want to put my tarp on the outside of my trash bag so that it doesn't get everything else in here wet. So the next thing is my pillow. Sometimes I'll use a little camping pillow that I made, and sometimes I'll bring a regular full-size pillow. For front country, it really doesn't matter because we have plenty of space. But for now, I'm gonna just shove my camping pillow in here. And the last few things, I'm gonna put in some extra layers. And this is really important, even if it's summer. It can get pretty chilly at night sometimes, particularly in the mountains, and you just never know. So you want to have at least some of your layers be wool or synthetic. Once again, cotton isn't great because it doesn't insulate really well when it gets wet, and it takes forever to dry. So while I love my ACC hoodie, it's not the best layer to bring out in the field. So I have a wool sweater that I keep in my pack. And this is great for just filling any little gaps. And I have a synthetic jacket that lives over here in my day pack so that I always have an extra layer if I get cold sitting down at lunch when I'm not moving and sweating anymore. And sometimes I'll also bring a fleece-lined flannel. This is cotton, so I only wear it when it's dry out. And then I'm gonna put a couple books in the top of my pack here. You can bring hardback books, you can bring paperback books, doesn't matter, weight doesn't matter in the front country. But I do like to put them in a Ziploc just as an extra layer of protection for them. So that's everything that goes in my trash bag. And then the last thing that goes on top here is my camp shoes. I've got a pair of Crocs. Anything will do, but you definitely want something to let your feet air out and let your boots air out after a long, sweaty day of work. And then on top here, I put my camp chair. I have one of this style where you just open it up and sit in it right on the ground. And that will roll up and just go right on top here. But you can also bring something like this, a folding chair or something big that you can pack separately. That's totally fine for a front country hitch. But before I tie everything up here, I'm gonna talk about my front pockets while it's easier to see. And this is where I keep all the little stuff that I don't want to get lost in this big pocket here, and that I want to be able to find and know where it is. So we'll start over here. This is where I keep my headlamp, and I always want to make sure that it has batteries before I go out in the field. This pocket, I keep my stuffed possum, Henry, for good luck, and I keep a few decks of Keyforge cards, which is a fantasy card game that I like to play in the field. Once again, they're in a Ziploc just to keep them safe. And this pocket over here, I've got something that's not super necessary, but makes me feel better, and that's some emergency fire starting stuff. So I've got a piece of pine wood, I've got some birch bark, got a spare lighter, and a striker stick. And then in these pockets down here, I like to keep my Toiletries kit. So let me move my pack out of the way and open this up for you. The reason why it's great to keep all of this stuff together is that you can't keep any of it in your tent. Bears and other animals are attracted to what we call smellables, which is food and snacks and all the stuff you would expect, but also some less expected items like toothpaste or your toothbrush once it's gotten toothpaste on it, sunscreen, lip balm, even pills with sugar coatings on them. So it's great to keep all of that stuff in one place that you can just toss in a vehicle or in a bear box once you get to your campground. So here's a little bit of a closer look at what I keep in my toiletries bag. So I've got my toothbrush, got my deodorant, got some lip balm, some lotion, sunscreen, my toothpaste, and my menstrual cup. Even if you're not expecting your period on a particular hitch, it's always a good idea to bring whatever period products you prefer, just because you never know what being out in the woods in a different situation is going to do to your cycle. And I also bring a little hairbrush and some extra hair ties, which are always great to have. So I take my toiletries bag, and that goes in one of my pockets down here, along with my hairbrush. And then I'll strap everything up. The last couple of things that I want to talk about are things that you maybe want to bring for fun. So some games, like a cribbage board and a set of cards, or this pirate card game. I might bring these separately, probably packed in a Ziploc bag, and just keep them in the car for whenever we want to use them. It'll keep them dry and out of the way. And then there's a few things that just live in my day pack all the time that are still really important to talk about. So in addition to this jacket that I mentioned, I also have my raincoat. And that just lives in this front pocket up here. It's always good to bring your raincoat out with you to work every day. Even if you don't know you'll need it, it's always better to have it and not need it. Other things that I keep in here are my lunch container, a spare bandana, my water bottles, and my personal water filter, just in case I run out of water and there happens to be a creek that I can get some from. This has helped me on a couple of occasions, for sure. But definitely not a requirement, and not all of our crews are working around water. So. I also like to keep some hand sanitizer in here, and some spare tampons and first aid stuff. Sometimes I like to have a notebook and a pen as well. And generally, once I get out to the field, I'll put my wallet and my phone in my day pack. And that's just so they won't fall out of my pockets and get lost. So I'll know where they are, they're in a zipper pocket, and I don't have to worry about them, but I'll have them with me every day when I need them. And I usually keep my day pack in the car. And just throw it back in the crew vehicle at the end of every day. Because I often have random snacks in here, the granola bar that I forgot about, or maybe I didn't finish my whole lunch, or maybe I've got a banana peel or an orange peel lying around in it. And it's just easier for me to throw the whole thing in the car and not worry about it than to have to pull all of the stuff out and make sure that there's nothing that an animal would want to get into in the night. So that's all of my front country gear packed up and ready to go for the first day of the hitch. I hope this helped you think about your gear and some things that you might want to bring or might not want to bring. And definitely get in touch with staff if you have any questions or concerns about gear. Thanks!